After 71 days at the top, Heart of Midlothian were meant to drop to second in the Scottish Premiership, and pictures of Hearts crests in bubbles, were meant to pop. Instead, Heart of Midlothian produced a huge win at Celtic Park to extend their lead at the top of the Scottish Premiership to 3 points. Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Skett and I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Cairns. Craig, this is the last day of your annual leave, but couldn't not hop on, could you?
Yeah, it was quite bad, but because I definitely wouldn't have been doing it if it was a defeat.
No.
I'm not sure I would have done it if it was a draw either, but no, I thought I've just watched it. You fired me a text saying that you were going to go solo and gave me the opportunity, so I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, it's not going to be too taxing for me to come on and talk about a win at Celtic Park that I've just watched.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, as I kind of hinted at, I think there was a lot of expectation that this would be the moment where it would kind of change at the top of the table, but it's not done that. Hearts changed the narrative, to quote Derek McInnes when he spoke to Sky Sports after the game. Coming into, obviously, there was, I think Lauren Shanklin summed up best when he described it as a wobble, and there was no better way to end that wobble than winning at Celtic Park and kind of spoiling the welcome party for Wilfred Nonsi, who we'll get to talk about and maybe reference your tactics board behind you. Let's go back to 1:45 p.m. The team news dropped from Celtic Park. What did you make of the lineup?
I have to admit, when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be a back three with McEntee at right wing back. So I'm firmly in the camp that McEntee is perfectly good at right back and has had a very, very good season at right back. So I'm happy to see him there. I'm less convinced when he's in the wing back role. I think Livingston and what was a more recent performance, it didn't really work. Aberdeen.
Oh no, sorry, it was I got confused there. Aberdeen.
Okay, no worries. It escaped me when I first went to say it. So I'm firmly in the camp where I'm happy to see him at right back, but I did think it was him at wing back, and I did think I'm not entirely sure about that. But then the chat seemed to be that it was a 4-3-3, and I was much more. I thought, yeah, that's perfect. And actually, you put up the graphic, and I'm not trying to be wise after the event, but I thought it was more likely that Kieserides would be on the right. I just thought a natural winger on the right ahead of Steinbender, with Milne having more of a capacity to play as a sort of left-sided attacking outlet. So I was pleased with that, and it was. I'm happy to see McEntee at right back, but I've been wanting to see him in midfield all season. It's a very tough game to be. It might be his second game he started in midfield, and I thought he was brilliant. I thought him and Magnuson did a very good job. You're never going to do it for the entire game. I thought Hearts started pretty poorly. I was a bit worried. You're always going to have a phase where Celtic have some opportunities and you maybe have to ride your luck. I think Hearts got away with one with that first Maeda chance. I think they maybe a wee bit with the Engels one towards the end, but even then that might have been too little too late. They restricted them to nothing in between that. And I thought that McEntee and Magnuson did a good job of stopping Engels and... Well, a mixture of the three of them. Between McGregor and Engels. They were the two deepest, weren't they? Or was Engels further forward than Hatate? I was watching Hearts more than I was Celtic. I thought they did a good job of stopping Celtic from building. Yeah,
it was straight away. I noticed McEntee was following Hatate. Basically, I think the Hearts' plan was not to allow real Hatate to turn with the ball, and everything like his passing was forced to go backwards. So yeah, when the lineup got announced, I was like, right, I hope it was 4-3-3. I kind of early in the day looked at what was looked at potential predicted 11. I just wondered if McInnes would kind of stick with the formula that worked at Rangers with Milne on the right and ahead of McIntyre, and then put forward a suggestion that it might have been would quite like to see like a back three that could have moved into a 4-3-3 quite seamlessly. And I think it was only one player out. I think I had Borchgrevink in and Stein instead of Steinvender, and have had it starting at a back three rather than a 4-3-3. So yes, I straight away made realise the mistake of putting Braga and Kizaridis the wrong way around. I just went for 4-3-3 and then sent a few texts and managed to find out that it did seem like it was going to be a back four with Steinvender at right back, and it was going to be a 4-3-3. And then when I knew that, I was like, right, I think that's got a nice balance to it. It's I think it shows that McInnes wanted Steinvender's pace, and there might have been a few eyebrows raised around his inclusion just because he was not in the last two squads. But I thought, aside from being caught out early on from a ball over the top that was clipped to Netke, I thought he was superb from the finish, and you could see why exactly he was in. He's good at turning, and even if he gets away from him, he's got that recovery pace. So yeah, and there's so many comments coming in. I'm not going to be able to. But Stein, I've seen a few people mention Steinvender. And
there's one. I went back to see. I thought maybe you hadn't starred it, but you had. So there's one there.
Yes, so I made all these notes. I made a running order, and we're just not just diving about the place. But that's always going to be the case after a game like that. But in terms of, we'll speak about individual players a wee bit more in depth later on. And this is something that McInnes mentioned. The first 20-25 minutes were a wee bit weren't great. And when I say weren't great, Celtic created a couple of openings. I thought by and large out of possession, Hearts were okay, but it was actually more the inability to control the ball, which was probably the frustrating thing. But at the same time, you kind of expect that period at Celtic where you have to survive and find your feet.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I think there's, and I sort of alluded to it earlier, I think there's always going to be a period in the game where Celtic are going to have a bit of pressure like that. You're not going to go to Celtic Park and get a meek attacking performance from Celtic for 90 minutes. It's very, very rare that would happen. And I think the worry is when it comes so early in the game that it kind of sets a tone, and that's what it's going to be like, and it's going to be a backs to the wall performance. And you were talking about on Friday that's what the one thing you didn't want is you didn't want Hearts going conceding early and then just rolling over, just like meekly sort of losing 2-3-0, something like that. And that's always the worry at the start. But as I said, after that, I would have liked to get all the negatives out the way. There was that sort of poorish start. I would have liked to have Hearts to have kept the ball a bit better in the closing stages of the game, and not even given Celtic that chance to. Maybe the Engels one aside, because they're always going to get one sort of chance at least. But it was disappointing when the Tierney one went in with the amount of defenders and the way that Hearts were sort of set up. It was a disappointing one to lose. But other than that, Hearts just restricted Celtic. And I know part of it's down to Celtic, a new manager, and they've not been full pelt this season and stuff. But still, that was a Celtic team that had, won 5 in a row? I think the last time we went into play Celtic, I said that Hearts were favourites. I actually said Hearts were big favourites, but that was a wee bit of a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean to say big favourites. I meant to say favourites. And I firmly believe that, because at that point we thought that Dane Murray, Colby Donovan and John Joe Kenny were all going to play. And they were just in a bit of a rut with Roger's still there. There's no way I would have said that Hearts were favourites going into that one today. So they deserve a lot of credit. And as I say, other than the sort of bookended parts of the game where Celtic had a little bit of joy, defensively it was an amazing performance. And second half, more so, the jumping ahead a wee bit, but they were better on the ball and in possession in the second half than they were in the first half.
So that's what I was saying. I pinpointed the moment where Hearts kind of had survived that first period where were Celtic were playing with in pace, and the game was a bit like the game was really intense, which at times suits Hearts, but it was the issue of Hearts is that they were in their own half and couldn't really get out. But the moment that I felt like we'd finally settled was, I think it was the 27th minute, and we're tacking up the right. There was a couple of times we could have played the forward pass. I think Magnus was one of them, and then we kind of came back and then went round, and then Braga and Milne combined down the left hand side, and Milne put in the cross, and it was towards Shanklin, and Celtic cleared it. But that was the first wee period where Hearts had the ball and had a wee bit of control and made good decisions when they had the ball for higher up the pitch as well. And from there, I think that helped Hearts build confidence, because even before them, there was moments where Hearts got the ball, and I think Shanklin was really good, but like the decision making wasn't good, and we've seen that over the last few weeks. And Kizaridis, and I thought Braga had a difficult start to the game, came in, but then kind of grew into it. And even, and we've talked about this before, even when they're not at their best, they still have moments. Look at that Braga scoring that goal, which we'll come to talk about just in a second, and then Kizaridis almost scoring to make it 3-0. Braga's goal is such a, obviously it's a game changer because it's the opening goal. That's just common sense. But in terms of
no, you're totally right.
In terms of the timing of it, but also what it did for Hearts in the second half was massive. I didn't get too excited about it because I thought, he's a mile offside.
Yeah, I had to wait until Braga. I think the camera zooms in on Braga and he's running away celebrating. That's when that chance that you're talking about they created not long before that. It wasn't long before that I'd shouted at the television. Now, I was being a wee bit more of a fan than I get to be at the games that we're at, but I shouted, "Do something with the ball," or something along those lines, not long before Hearts went up and won that corner. But yes, a very, very bizarre goal. I mean, you're hard pressed to find anybody who didn't think it was offside. And
McInnes fought it as well.
McInnes was shouting at Braga to leave it.
Yeah.
The Schmeichel seems to have left it. Harry Milne, who officially gets an assist for it, seems to have just leathered that out of frustration, but then accidentally sliced it. The commentators, they thought it was offside, and they were waiting for a whistle or a decision. So yeah, a very, very bizarre goal. Not just because it was offside and then it was scored. It was just like the build up before that, like the arc and run that sort of Braga makes, and then I say the miss kick from Milne. It was very, very bizarre all round. But I totally agree with what you're saying, because yes, goals change games, but this had been a bright start from Celtic. Maybe hadn't got what their early dominance had deserved, even if they didn't create a whole lot. And then it was a real sort of sucker punch. It was a real sort of, it completely changed the dynamic of the game. And I think it's a big reason why I think Hearts maybe had a lot more belief in the second half. That's it.
That's what I was going to say. That I felt that it gave Hearts a shot in the arm. And you talked about the bookend, and in terms of the end at the end of the game, I thought up until that point, up until the point where basically Hearts had 6 defenders on the pitch, that Hearts were excellent in that they kept Celtic at arm's length. Swallow had little to do. Celtic were just either panicking or shooting from distance. Fine, absolutely happy with that. But it felt to me that every time Hearts got the ball and got into Celtic's half, I felt that we could have done something, or we're going to do something. And we've seen it with Kizaridis playing in Shanklin, who had the shot which led to the corner, which got the second goal. Magnuson's header at the back post. Yeah. And then Kizaridis as well when it went 3-0. But I just felt there was a bit more, like I said, a bit more belief, a bit more, not clinical, but a bit more kind of thrust with decision making. I think everyone was a wee bit more. What is the word I am looking for? It was decisive. it was a lot more like they were more decisive of what they wanted to do, and it did. Even before the second goal, it felt to me that whoever the team that was going to get the second goal was going to be Hearts.
I did feel like that. Because, as I said, Celtic didn't really create much until towards the end of the game, where it was too little, too late. I, again, being a bit of a fan, shouted at Magnuson with that header until I saw a replay and it came off scales just before he heads it, because it just looked like the Aberdeen one all over again, where he's like he is too weak with it. And McInnes said, I can't remember. I think I've watched 3 or listened to 3 different McInnes interviews, but he did say in one of them that he had a go at him about it as well. But then Magnuson said that it's come off scales, so he's given him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure he'll change his mind when he sees the replay that it does clearly come off scales before Magnuson gets the header. And then there is another chance at 2-0. Hearts have another chance, don't they? Like Hearts almost got a third. Because of Edith's one.
Then he played through left, and then he slid it past the far post. In terms of talking about headers, McInnes, my word. Yeah. That was just, it was watching it back, and you can see, you actually see like the veins in his neck, the way that he's like, he puts his neck back and his head back and generates the power to beat Casper Schmeichel, who is obviously don't want to get into Celtic podcast. They need a goalkeeping upgrade.
Well, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from it because it is a brilliant header, but I don't know how he has that much space to do it. And speaking of goalkeepers, I mean, we've already spoken about the sort of late rally that Celtic had, but what did you make of Schwolo's save from Engels? I mean, Engels definitely has to put it either side of him. I think that goes without saying, but I don't know. I was kind of on the fence between it being a good save or not, because it's not one where he just lets it, he knows nothing about it and it hits off him. It kind of like is it off his leg at a sort of, I don't know. I need to see it again, but I saw a couple of replays at the time, because at first I thought he's just smacked that right at him and he's not known anything about it. But I saw a replay that suggested that Schwolo might have actually made a decent save there.
I will need to look. I need to look back at that, but it's one where without looking too much in depth of that, where you expect the goalkeeper to make the mistake, the save, and it's probably a bigger miss. But the fact that he's well positioned and he moves across the goal, give it credit for him, and it's massively for him, massive for him as well, especially off the back of Kilmarnock game where he's made the mistake that's cost Hearts the 2 points in the end, and then to have that big moment was massive for him.
Because if Celtic score that, by the way, that's a completely different end to the game. When Tierney scores, you're kind of like, well, Celtic would have to do something special to actually equalise in the time that they've got. But I can't remember exactly when it was, but that Engels chance, that's a complete, because it was 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then maybe even goes to 5 minutes injury time with that goal being scored. Who knows? So yes, just as well that didn't go in, and we didn't get to see that play out, because I was stressed enough as it was all the way throughout that second half. There was a period between Hearts going 2-0 up, and then maybe like the last 10 minutes or so of the game or something like that, where I was a wee bit more relaxed, but that was the most stressed I've been watching Hearts this season, that second half.
Yeah, I felt, I don't know, because I was...
Nothing that they were doing, I have to say. I mean, I'm talking about just like, because Celtic have got the ability to come back. It was more that. I wasn't meaning to do, because Hearts were better in the second half than they were in the first half.
Yeah, I don't know. So there were two aspects of this, and it comes nicely onto it. Is firstly, like, see when you're in work mode, I think that kind of takes a wee bit off the stress of being a fan away, because you're concentrating on like trying to write and seeing what's happening in the game without being like totally invested. Like you're in fan mode where you're moaning at every slack pass or trying to get up the pitch, etc., etc. But also, I felt probably more comfortable as soon as Nancy brings out his tactics boards. I know it's it might be churlish to say it, and it's a wee bit no, I wouldn't say that they're disrespectful, but and it's just churlish or childish. But as soon as he's playing with that wee board, I'm just thinking, you can't.
But we talk about
man.
Optics a lot, exactly
Yeah.
the same thing. We talk about optics a lot in football, and especially when you're in the goldfish bowl that is Rangers and Celtic, and the way he was just sitting there with his knees together and that tiny wee board on his, and he's moving them about, and then they go and concede a goal within 30 seconds of that being shown.
Yeah.
It just, and then it cuts to the guy with his eyes closed for a few seconds, which again, I think it's just poor timing on his part. I mean, we've all done things like that at a game where we're all just like, and we wander off for a second or whatever it is, and that it's just the optics of it are really, really bad, given what's going on at the club and all the ire towards the board and things like that. But yeah, it's and the fact people are picking up that it was red, white, and blue as well. The tactics was all these little things.
You put in a great picture from, I think it was SNS that got it, and it was he was speaking to Kieran Tierney, and then just in the background you could just see Derek McInnes just looking at there that's Westeros Fox says it. There's a picture of Derek looking at it while Nonce is giving instructions. Tierney just directions.
Almost like he's
just
playing in his eyes and looking in the gap between the two of them, like just try to see what shape he's talking about.
Is that what you're doing? And then calls to Bork, right, like we're going 6 to the back. But yeah, just on that, so we'll get onto individual players on the back of it. But a couple of folk have said, McKenna 40 for one. McKenna was brilliant today, great tactics. It was. We've talked about it, especially yourself, where throughout the season it's like Derek McInnes has done enough to earn the trust of the Hearts support, and that's maybe wavered over the last few weeks. But when you break it down, especially the big game, the big games the Hearts have played. So if you just count them as Aberdeen, Celtic, Hibs, and Rangers, beating Celtic twice, beating Rangers, beating Hibs, beating Aberdeen once, and lost once to Aberdeen. Conceded 3 goals, if my memory serves me correct, across those games. And that was a big thing over the last, as a Hearts fan, you want the team to turn up in big games and big moments. They have done that time and time again. And it's not as if it's been Celtic Park or Ibrox, any of these games where they've been a smash and grab. They've all been deserved wins. And you can see what Derek McInnes has wanted to do, and you can see it play out the way the games have gone.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Braga and Kizridis. I mean, I'm not like disagreeing with what you're saying, but like sometimes you're just sort of playing. Those were clearly the players that he had identified that were going to get Hearts up the pitch and were going to help to exploit the gaps in the Celtic team. So he spoke about after the game that the start of the week, Hearts didn't know whether Nancy would stick with what Celtic have played and what they've played for the 4-3-3 or variant of a 4-3-3 that they've played for years now, whether he would stick with that because he's only in the door a few days, or whether he'd go with what he actually went with, what he's played at Columbus Crew, and that's this sort of 3-4-3, or I think McInnes described it as a 3-2-2-3, which means that you've got a back 3, but then instead of wing backs, you're playing 2 wingers. That's what he went with. So McInnes said that he identified that that's where the gaps were going to be between the centre backs and the wingers, and that's why Kizridis and Braga were wide of that. And then they got enough. They're going to play 4 central midfielders, so that's why he got an extra midfielder in there as well. Not just an extra midfielder in there, but he got a lot of physicality in there. And we already spoke about the sort of man marking job that they did and when they chose to press and things like that. And in the end, it worked. I mean, sometimes it was untidy. Sometimes Braga's going to try and take on a man and he's going to win a throw-in or he's going to concede possession. But sometimes he's going to link with somebody and then get in behind the defence and something's going to happen. And I think it's the same with Kizridis. I know that Kizridis is kind of still a wee bit out of form given the sort of very, very high bar that he set. But these are still players that they've still got something. They can turn it on at any moment. And I think they showed that in spells today, Hearts.
Yeah, and absolutely, especially they've not been right at it recently. And McInnes has talked about getting the guy. Like when he's talked about the guys that who had been bringing up big moments earlier in the season, it was referencing Braga and Kizridis, because you just look at the goal output, coming into the game over the last few fixtures. It's obviously dropped. Need to talk about the midfield three. That was the midfield three I hoped for, with Devlin sitting, or if it was going to be Devlin sitting, and then you've got the physicality and mobility of McEntee and Magnuson. I just thought it's maybe not the midfield that you'd play at home to Motherwell, or maybe like at home to Motherwell or Dundee. You'd probably want a wee bit more creativity in there, or you add in a striker. But for games like for big games like today, I thought that balance of Magnus and McEntee and Devlin were superb. And I mean, I'll bring in just a few comments before we go into, for example, Andy Fell says Magnuson was class today, surprised he didn't get man of the match. MB Jambo says Devlin was incredible again today, phenomenal performance. There's obviously talked about McEntee as well. Mark Bell says a standout for me today and all season, to be honest, is Cammy Devlin. I agree. I hope we can keep him beyond the season. I agree. A lot of people have been picking out the centre midfielders, especially Magnuson and Devlin. Off the three, was there anyone that really kind of stood out for you?
But I think Magnuson stood out. I'd probably say that Devlin was the Hearts' best performer on the day. I thought Magnuson stood out more, though, because I think we've just come to expect it from
Devlin. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Magnuson is one of these players that's just slowly getting better. I don't think he's quite there yet, but I think he's still got levels to reach. And I think he maybe will be typecast by some people because of his size and his style.
Yeah.
Like his running style and his sort of body shape and that kind of thing. But he's a lot better on the ball than I think. This is like a long-winded way of saying good feet for a big man.
Big man. Yeah.
I think he will get typecast as like a defensive sort of ball-winning midfielder, but I think he's a lot more than that. I think he's a very, very... I think he's got a very good range of passing, and I think he's a very intelligent player. And I think he is one that still has a bit of settling in to do. And I think he's had I don't know about less than ideal. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like he's had to bide his time, both because of the form of the team and the central midfielders at the start of the season. He was having to. There was a long stretch of games where he had to make do with just a couple of minutes here and there if he was lucky, and then he's sort of thrown in to an extent when an injury comes up. And I think it's taken him a few games, but I think he's shown that he's going to be a really good player. There
was a moment. Was it the 25th minute? There was just because I kind of made the mental note. I don't think I wrote it down, but it was in the first quarter of the game, or within the first 25 minutes, and he was between the Hearts box and the centre circle, and he got the ball, and he just did this kind of. He just created space for himself. I think there was a couple of Celtic players coming towards him, and he kind of just did this like kind of Cruyff turn and then spread out wide, and it was just so composed, so assured, and it was like especially in that midfield, and a guy, as Derek McInnes mentioned, cost 40,000 euros, had been playing college football in America, college soccer in America, and then playing in Iceland, where he was playing in the second tier, then he was playing in the top tier, but then to go in, I think it's fair to say he's probably never played in an environment like Celtic Park and what was on the line in terms of the game. But then to have just like that coolness was really, really impressive. And having thought he was a wee bit anonymous against Aberdeen, thought he wasn't great in the first half against Kilmarnock, but I thought he really came into the game in the second half against Kilmarnock, and he was probably one of the few Hearts players that kind of offered a wee bit of control. And then to put that performance in against Celtic Day was so encouraging going forward. As you said, Cammy Devlin, just expect it from him. I think we've been waxing lyrical about him. I think it's easy for fans of other teams who maybe only see Devlin every now and then to just again typecast him as this wee guy that runs around, wins the ball back, and isn't great at passing. The one he put out the pitch aside.
Exactly. Did you see the build up to the game on Sky?
Yes, I've Scott Brown.
Yes, I mean you can't get higher praise. You cannot get higher praise for someone in that position. a guy who was a serial winner playing that role. And again, I mean, a slightly different player, but still similar area of the pitch, similar sort of dominant role, setting the tone, demanding the ball, shouting at others, that kind of thing. And I think getting that kind of praise from Scott Brown, and that Scott Brown has recognised the improvement in Cammy Devlin this season, you probably couldn't get higher praise than from Scott Brown. I don't know how well that'll go down with Hearts fans.
Well, we'll find out, because I took a note of what he said, because I was going to put it in a wee article to go either out tonight or tomorrow, because I thought it was like my ears pricked up and I'd missed it, and then thankfully they put it on social media. But so to give, I've just got the comments here, but I thought Brown was like spot on with what he said. He says, basically, I'm really enjoying Devlin at this moment in time. He's got that little bit of arrogance. He plays now with confidence. He plays with his chest out. Looks like a top quality player. Reminds me of Callum McGregor when he was younger. He gets on the ball and drives the team forward. Everyone at Hearts looks to him to go and get on the ball, to go and make the tackle, to go and set the tone early doors in the game. And that's what he's doing at the moment. And I think that's the evolution that we've seen of Cammy Devlin, especially this season. I think he's really, really kicked on under Derek McInnes, and off the squad last season in terms of players coming in and of improving players that are already at the club. I think Devlin's probably been the big one for that.
And I still think that even in two of the games, so see when you look at the two games that I'm most disappointed that Hearts haven't won this season, and that's Dundee United and Kilmarnock.
Yes.
Cammy Devlin was still the best player for Hearts in both of those, or there's arguably the best player for Hearts in both of those matches as well. So even in this little lull, he's still that Hearts had, he still maintained a good level of performance.
I don't think he's dropped below a 7 out of 10 this season in terms of performance from one game to the next. And I suppose before we move on, just want to touch on the defence. I thought the defence was really, really good. I thought we talked about Steinvender to begin with. Milne was excellent again. Unfortunately, he's going to miss the Rangers game due to a booking.
Kingsley was brilliant when he came on, though, by the way. Kingsley was absolutely brilliant. Nothing got past him. I mean, maybe... I actually, for Celtic's goal, it's not as if I was studying the replays. Again, I was just very, very stressed. But at least when he first came on, he was winning absolutely everything. He was great. And to add to what was said about Steinvender earlier, actually, to come in, to be dropped from the squad for a couple of weeks and then come back in and start. And he got a booking in the first half that was maybe a wee bit harsh. At first, I thought he had lunged in pretty badly, but I think he kind of pulls out of it and barely makes any contact. But yeah, he was excellent. And again, another player who is not naturally a right back, but I'm more than happy to see playing at right back for Hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. Halkett was Halkett, and Stuart Finlay again. You see what there's been. We went talk about him and his position or his form recently, but there was a moment in this first half where it's like that's exactly where they try and slide it down him, slide it down the side for him for Maeda to run onto. He matches Maeda, gets his foot in at a crucial time and wins the ball back.
I think Crocker called it a Finlay style tackle or something like that. And I know exactly the passage you're talking about.
In terms of that's Keyminder now. I was going through my running order. To conclude, I will bring in a comment that starred so Stephen Patterson says, with the cup final next week, Hearts could potentially go 6 points clear, and if the manager's new style doesn't get off to a good start from them, it could put a bit more pressure on them. Martin says, not saying we'll win the league, but first time this season, I genuinely think we could push them all the way. So just on the back of the result, just to finish up, what does this result mean, Craig?
I think I sort of like that pushing them all the way comment. I think I'm edging closer towards that now, because I've been very much in the camp of Hearts aren't going to win the league. I've not seen much to change my mind yet, but I do think this was a huge result in terms of how long Hearts can hang in there, because the run that Hearts are on, if they were to go to Celtic Park and lose, and then just everything that it means as well. It's a 6-pointer. It means that they go top of the league. They've still got a game in hand, and I just think that would have been psychologically hard for Hearts to come back from, but still, like, Hearts are in the midst of a really tough run of fixtures as well. And I know going to Falkirk probably shouldn't sound that intimidating, and it probably looks a bit better now after this weekend's results, but it would have seemed a lot more intimidating had Hearts not got a win today, because that would have been one win in the last 7 or something like that. So I think it's huge for Hearts how long Hearts can hang in there for. It's not only huge in that it shows that Hearts weren't really that bad when they were going through that recent run recently. And again, I don't mean to sound smart after the fact. I did try and say this recently, and I also get plenty wrong as well. So I'm not trying to say, oh, look, I was right.
We both do.
But I was trying to say not that long ago that Hearts weren't amazing at the start of I think there was a 5 or 6 game period where Hearts were brilliant. And I think either side of that, they've been good. And at the start of the season, they got the results. And then more recently, they haven't been getting the results. But I still don't think performance-wise, there's been that much that's diverged between them. Other than, like I say, there was a 4 or 5 game period where I thought Hearts were brilliant every week. So I think that this now shows that Hearts are building something that's quite sustainable, that they're going to be a good side for the rest of the season. And I think it also shows that if they lose a few matches or go on a run where they don't get a win for a few weeks, they can still turn up at Ibrox or Celtic Park and maybe get a result and then change the narrative again there. And I think that's huge. I think that's huge psychologically, because Hearts have shown that they can be good against all the other teams for a sustained period of time. But to then win head-to-heads against teams that you could potentially be in a title race with, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was such a big result for, again, quoting McInnes again, changing the narrative and just settling everything down. And like the beating Kilmarnock probably would just settled everyone down. Whereas beating Celtic, it was just done like a complete 180, and it was like, right, win it. We're going to win the league again. It's like now it's a case of when, not if. But I think that's a really good point about the being able to bounce back from these wee wobbles or sticky patches. But I do think that this is, we will find this throughout the season where Celtic will maybe go on runs, Hearts will go on runs, and there'll be like positive and negative. There probably will be swings and momentum. Who knows what Rangers could do? They've kind of motored up the table recently, and then you've got Motherwell and Hibs obviously with it in that section of the league. So I think there's a lot more to come. There's going to be a lot more ups and downs, but with this Hearts side, there's been a hell of a lot more ups. Who knows what January can bring? There'll certainly be additions. How many and who will be interesting to see. Got players coming back. Someone asked about Benny Meningamy. There was hope that he'd be back for Falkirk. I still think I would be surprised if he is back for Falkirk.
They initially said Rangers, and then a week later he said Falkirk. So that suggested he was ahead of the schedule. So I mean, it's maybe like at a push Falkirk. It sounds like
But yeah, this is he'll be. But then it's after a performance like today and like what McEntee and Magnus has done. Exactly. It's like less pressure and need for Beningamy to be rushed back, and then I just think it gives a result like this, more so than beating Kilmarnock, more so than beating Motherwell, just gives a massive shot in the arm, and it's like a momentum changer, and we can look to start to build, because if you can go to Falkirk and get a positive result, and then that game at Tynecastle against Rangers ahead of Christmas becomes massive as well, and really exciting.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm saying, though. We're in a run of really difficult matches at the moment. I mean, I know had Kilmarnock at home, that it's a game that Hearts maybe should be winning, but away at Pittodrie, Celtic away, Rangers at home, Hibs not too far away. As I said, Falkirk away. Falkirk have been a good team this season as well. So we're in a tough run of fixtures, and I don't know. What was the question again? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I think we're bringing it to an end. We're bringing it to an end. So unless there's anything else to add, I will wrap.
That's after one beer. I know I've been drinking a beer during this, but that was the first one. When you gave me the half-hour notice, I went down to the shops to get some. I thought I'd have a wee drink on my last night of annual leave after that win. So yeah, sorry. Maybe it's gone to my head, but I totally lost my train of thought during that. Apologies.
Beatbot Boop asks how many players are on suspensions going to Saturday. So Harry Milne will miss the Rangers game, and then in addition to that, Cammy Devlin and Alexandros Kizaridis are one booking away as well. So hopefully Cammy Devlin doesn't get booked against Falkirk on Saturday, but we'll worry about that closer to the time. Craig, thank you very much for taking 40 minutes out of your last day of annual leave to talk about Heart of Midlothian's 2-1 win at Celtic. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching and getting involved. Loads of comments. Sorry didn't get round to that many of them, but there was just we were just, both of us are really excited just to talk. So
I think that might be a record that we've had people tuning in live at the same time at one point. I think we might have I think we might have hit a new record there.
And if you like what you've heard, then please do hit the subscribe button, because it does make a difference to us. That is seamless. I don't know if I think actually read out the S1 Jobs ad as well. Just got too excited. So if I can find it, where we go? Hearts Standards is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Better late than never. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful week coming up. We'll be back at some point during the week to discuss the Scottish Premiership League leaders. Until then, goodbye.